What's the darkest secret you found out about a family member? I was 17 when I found out. My grandmother was never one for small talk. She was a woman of tightly folded napkins, exact teacup measurements, and letters written in cursive on thick stationery. But that summer, when I stayed with her for a few weeks before starting college, something shifted. She was older then, slower. She needed help with groceries, the computer, the yard. One night after dinner, I was helping her clean out an old filing cabinet she'd stored in the guest room closet, and that's where the box was. Shoe-sized, taped shut, labeled in neat script, John's letters. John was my step-grandfather. He died before I was born. I knew the basics, that he'd married my grandmother in the early 70s, after her first husband, my actual grandfather, had passed away. They'd been together for nearly 30 years. No kids together, just him helping raise her 3 boys. My dad never talked about him much, but he didn't seem to hate him, just called him John, never Dad. I asked Grandma about the box. She hesitated, then nodded. You can open it. Inside were old letters, postcards, Polaroids. Most were from places in the US, Denver, St. Louis, Chicago, but a few caught my attention. The addresses were Australian, and the return name wasn't John Smith, which had been his name here. It was David S. I asked her, who's David? She didn't answer at first. Just looked at the window for a long time like she was trying to decide if I was old enough for whatever this was. Finally, she said, that was his name before he became John. It took her the rest of the evening to tell me the whole thing, piece by piece, in that slow, careful way people talk when they've had decades to turn a truth over in their minds. His real name wasn't John Smith, it was David S., an Australian man with a wife and 2 kids in Melbourne in the 1960s. He worked as an engineer for some mining company, gone often. One weekend, he took the family car and never came back. They found it weeks later, empty, near a cliffside with tire marks leading straight toward the edge. Police concluded he'd either jumped or been swept out to sea. His body was never recovered. He showed up in Oregon 2 years later under the name John Smith, clean-shaven, quiet, with a slight accent he mostly smothered. He got a job doing construction, met my grandmother at a church fundraiser, and introduced himself as a widower. Said his wife had died of cancer. She believed him. So did everyone else. She married him in 1973. It wasn't until the early 90s, long after my dad and uncles had moved out, that the cracks started to show. John got sloppy one day when he left an envelope out on the table, postmarked from Sydney, addressed to David. She confronted him. He panicked. Then he told her the truth. He said he couldn't take it anymore back then, that his marriage was falling apart, he was deep in debt, overwhelmed, and scared. One night, he decided the only way out was to disappear. He drove his car to the cliffs, rolled it toward the edge in neutral, then hiked miles through brush and hitchhiked to another town. From there, he started over. New passport, new country, new life. She stayed with him. I don't know why. Maybe she felt like she was too far in. Maybe she loved him in spite of it. Maybe she saw it as a mercy, that he'd made a mistake and just wanted to be better. But she told him one condition. If he ever got another letter, she would open it first. Over the years, they came sparingly. A few from his ex-wife, most from his son, whose tone changed over time, from pleading to bitter to cold. The last letter came around 1997, a short note with a flyer for a comedy show attached. It was his son. He had become a stand-up comedian, fairly well known in Australia apparently. The flyer had a headshot and a quote, "My father faked his own death, seriously. The ultimate Irish exit." That was the name of the bit. The ultimate Irish exit. John never responded. He died of heart failure in 2002. No obituary, no funeral, just a quiet cremation and an urn that still sits on a shelf in the back room of Grandma's house. I looked up the comedian once, years later. Watched clips online. He was funny, sharp, kind of angry, kind of sad. His joke about his dad got a huge laugh. He smiled, but there was something in his eyes that stayed flat. I've never told anyone else in the family what she told me. I think my dad suspects, but no one's ever brought it up. The letters are still in that box. Grandma never threw them out. She just labeled them neatly, tucked them away, and left them for someone else to find.